The really irritating thing for some people is there actually is no Agile manifesto. It's not expensive because of the consultants, because the consultants most of the time don't do much, but it takes a lot of time. After you have defended a point often enough, you start to believe the defense. We help companies or organizations to be able to work again after an Agile transformation.
Welcome to Software Testing Unleashed, the podcast for testers, test automation engineers, software developers, and all other people who want to create stunning, great software. My guest today is Michael Mahlberg. I met him at the OOP conference in Munich this year, and we talked about post-agility. Is agility really dead? And if so, what way can we do now? This and more we explore in this episode. And now enjoy. Hi, Michael. Great to have you on the show here.
Yeah, glad to be back.
We're back. It's now in an English episode.
Yes.
We did a German one, I think, 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
At the OOP.
Plausible.
And now we met again here at the OOP in Munich again. And yesterday we stand together and said, okay, we should do an episode 2 today.
Exactly.
And now we're here. Great. And I read your abstract in the conference program, and there comes one claim to my mind: Agile is dead.
Yeah, well, Agile is dead was the go-to slogan like in 2024.
Yeah.
So it's been dead for a while, obviously.
Yeah.
And it depends from where you look at it. If I see huge companies, of course, obviously it's not dead for everyone. But if you look at the whole consultancy business and so on, it seems to be rather dead, because a lot, especially of the big consultancies, well, let's say they give their Agile employees a lot of space to develop their career outside the company.
Yeah.
So there was this huge wave of people being let go by the telecom and I think Accenture 2 years ago in the States.
Yeah.
And it's in Europe now, obviously.
Yeah. But what was wrong with that stuff? Why didn't it work, or why don't we like this term Agile anymore?
Well, for me, what Martin Fowler said a couple of years ago already is the Agile industrial complex has tried to I don't want to say pursue, but to take over the idea, not necessarily willingly, like, oh, this is nice and now we're going to subvert it and make something completely different out of it. But it just happened, driven by market forces and so on. And these days, that's why in my talk I also talk about post-agile.
Yeah.
We're in an area where the word doesn't have any real meaning anymore. It's like modern. There was a time when modern meant a specific painter or a couple of specific painters, a couple of specific architects. But these days, everything that's modern is just new.
Yeah.
Like if I tell you I got a modern house, you'll probably ask me which kind of home automation I have, and you won't ask me whether it was designed by Mies van der Rohe.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
modern had the same thing, and Agile these days isn't helpful anymore to differentiate anymore.
Yeah.
And especially with my bigger clients, like corporate multi-thousand people companies, it's really a word not to be used, because it puts strain on people, makes people unhappy and so on.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's good that Agile is dead.
Yeah. But what I think when a lot of companies went to Agile the last years and said, okay, we want to do it and do everything, pack in everything like OKRs and design thinking and doing retrospectives and sprinting and planning and all this stuff, and the people are overwhelmed and frustrated. But what's now? You mentioned post-Agile.
Yeah. It's one thing to start it off is the really irritating thing for some people is there actually is no Agile manifesto.
Yeah.
What they have is only a manifesto for Agile software development.
Yeah.
It's not the manifesto for Agile management. It's not the manifesto for Agile ways of running a company. It's not the manifesto for whatever.
Yeah.
And they try to put everything, like you said, for example, OKRs, under that umbrella.
Yeah.
And so there's no real grip on it anymore. And post-Agile, actually, these days, it's been the term has been coined by two people, or two people have used it prominently. That was David J. Anderson from the Kanban method back in 2010 already, where he said, the people from the manifesto, they said it's a point in time, and now this is what's right, this is what's true, and that these are our observations. Everything that comes after the manifesto, by definition, has to be post-Agile, because it didn't influence the manifesto anymore.
That's true, yeah.
And the other one who really used that term is Alistair Cockburn, one of the signatories and the guy who actually invited to the conference where the manifesto was written. And he's very much on that journey with the, like in modern, post-Agile, because it doesn't have any meaning anymore. And what we need these days is more stuff like what we do actually, organizational development and finding fitting solutions for companies. There's a theory on development stages of companies where you have what's it called, pioneer stage at the first stage, then you have a differentiation phase, and then you have an integration phase. It's from a, I think, German or Swiss guy, Fritz Glasel, who is also known for the conflict stages. And the problem is you can't skip any of these stages. You have to have each of these stages to be informed. Like you can't differentiate if you didn't have any pioneer phase before that, and so on. And most big companies are in this differentiation phase. And differentiation phase means that the company is very strict on who does what and why. You have manuals for everything, and it's very clear defined what your role is.
Yeah.
Doesn't fit too well with Agile, right?
Yeah.
And if you go to a company like that with several thousand people and you show them something like SAFe or any other big poster,
Yeah.
it perfectly fits into their world because it just brings them back even deeper into the differentiation phase where everything is exactly specified and so on. But that means you just kind of try to copy and paste blueprints for organizations, and that doesn't work. And so we need ways to really apply org dev, organizational development methods, and maybe some of the things we learned in the last 25 years fits into that new picture, but it's not, this is where we started, where we want to be, that is your company, take it. But that's what many people tried to do over the last couple of years, and that's how it got its bad name.
Yeah. So it's what I hear is that we need much more and more organization, individual process environment for working, and there could be things from the Agile stuff or Scrum or something like that we put in there, but it has to fit on the organization.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like the Agile manifesto, it's called that on the second page. But the manifesto for Agile software development has one sentence about how to improve the process. It's the 12th principle. At regular intervals, people check their efficiency and adopt. I don't know the words exactly, but that's more or less the one. And that's all they say about how to improve a company. That works well for a 5-people team or a 7-people team or whatever. But there are organizations who have actually done that for many, many, many years. We have things like Peter Senge's Fifth Discipline about learning organizations, but we also have things like Lean in the original TPS way, not in the Womack and Jones translation, but what Taiichi Ono originally proposed. And that's a very, very full-blown description on how you can improve iteratively and on the road and so on. So, yeah, why go with one sentence from the manifesto when you can go with a whole body of knowledge from there?
Yeah. So, what would for you be the ideal build image for an organization who is now stuck in the agile death, and to get out of this, to improve there?
Take a big step back, and there's one model of how to look at companies, and they talk about the 7 base processes that happen. It's like, in German it's Bewusstseinsbildungsprozess. It's one process that forms opinions.
Yeah.
And another one is a process that's designing the future. There's 7 of them. And the crux is that with a very hierarchical company, all those processes are distributed very unevenly about the hierarchies.
Yeah.
And what we need would be a way to step back, and especially for this process that cares about how are we, what are we, what's our opinion on ourselves. It's really necessary, even though top management must initiate it, that it's not only top management who takes that step back, but they take everyone with them. And that there are org dev ways to do that, but it's expensive, it takes time. It's not expensive because of the consultants, because the consultants most of the time don't do much, but it takes a lot of time. People need to really have the room in both time and physical space to really talk about what the situation is, to reorient.
Yeah. I think that's also a problem in the organizations who go there the last 10 or 20 years into agile, and now they have to say to themselves, okay, that was not the right way. We have to step back and to do something different, and it's not very easy to say to the organization, because they are all tired of change and all this stuff, and now they have to switch again something.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's this whole, the Kotter change model probably. That's a 8-step model, how change is done or can be done or happens. Whatever, it's hard. Everything I say about it is probably wrong from one way or the other. But the idea is that the first thing you need to have is a sense of urgency. And that really means you also have not only the need to have the sense of urgency. I mean, I can create the sense of urgency with someone in the ocean. If I duck them underwater, they have the sense of urgency. I want to be up there, but it's no real urgency because we're just playing around and whatever. If there or I am 5 miles out and start to run, then there's a real urgency. Yeah. So it's this whole create a sense of urgency often is understood as meaning, we have to really tell them that it's dangerous, even though it isn't. Yeah. But it doesn't work like that. Yeah. It has to be a real reason. And then there has to be the knowledge about that reason. That's the sense of urgency. And many companies don't have that. Yeah. They're still too rich, works too well. It's like a number of people who have a burnout every year is normal. We've been there. Yeah. We don't need to change anything, and so on. So they won't change. Yeah. No need to change. Yeah. And so the first thing really is there has to be the real need for the change. And what we one of the things we say, what we as a company do right now is we help companies or organizations to be able to work again after an agile transformation.
Yeah. That's a great claim.
Yeah, thank you. But of course, out of all the companies out there, it's only like 10% who really feel that need.
Yeah.
There's probably another, I don't have any numbers, I can just make them up, but there's probably a third of the companies out there where people suffer, but it's not yet in the system. Like, the system doesn't know that individuals suffer, so for them it will take a while. And there are many companies where this agile in name only actually works.
Yeah.
So why not? It's no harm done. It's fine. But those companies who really struggle with what happened under the name of agile, they also don't want agile anymore, of course. Many of the agile terms are burned.
Yeah.
But that's actually a great opportunity because now they can find things that they really need.
Yeah.
So actually, from my personal perspective, it's really a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any chance for a guy who is sitting now in their team as a tester or developer or architect and hearing this episode and saying, okay, I see we have a problem here. Is there any chance to get this information into the management or into the organization for them?
The primary approach is to make them experience what you experience. So arguing doesn't help. It's the moment you start to talk to your manager and say, this is really bad and that doesn't work for us, there's an automatic reflex to go into defense. And after you have defended a point often enough, you start to believe the defense. So then it gets harder and harder. Yeah. But if you pull them into your situation and tell them, help us with whatever, the things that don't work, then they start feeling it, and then you can start to put in little pebbles of information about, task loading, task switching, and actually, this is the process that's defined. This is what we do. They don't match. Yeah. Maybe we should take some time to reflect. And so from there on, and then of course there's, once you start looking not into books or web resources on Agile, but more on organizational development, especially systemic and system theory stuff, you find a lot of pointers.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that sounds good. A good way for if I'm catched in this organization, to make it visible, to make it feelable for the other people, that they understand my problem. Do you, when you look at all this agile stuff we did the last 25 years, is there anything you would say this method or this pattern works really, really well in nearly every organization? Or
Let me grab my laptop, because that's exactly the talk.
Okay.
There are some things like fast iterations that really works well. Get real feedback, which most organizations who claim to run Agile these days don't do anymore, because they don't get real feedback, because it's not rolled out to the customer. They just build iteration over iteration and then roll it out after some time. Yeah. And some time is usually not the smallest possible amount of time. So real feedback is still something that's extremely helpful. And other things from the original manifesto are also quite helpful for teams. They're not necessarily any pointers how to run an organization. So there are things that are really, really helpful for organizations, like, for example, know how to come to decisions. But then I would rather look into sociocracy. Don't pull it out and do sociocracy. Just pick out the decision-making parts. But that's not from the Agile realm.
Yeah.
That's from somewhere else. Actually started more than a century ago, but it's something that's another story.
Yeah. And there is for organizations, a lot of big organizations, they're trying the safe stuff. So they have their release trains. And are there anything, would you say, okay, that are good things or?
Well, funny story. The conference where the Agile Manifesto was written wasn't called Agile Manifesto Writing Conference. It was called Conference on Lightweight Methods. One of the goals was write a manifesto for lightweight methods. Another of the goals was, let's find compelling reasons for RUP enthusiasts. RUP is the Rational Unified Process. To switch to our way of working. Well, one of the promoters who also wrote parts of the book on the Rational Unified Process was a guy called Dean Leffingwell. If you look into who's behind SAFe, you find that's Dean Leffingwell. So we've come full circle, and what's branded as Agile these days actually is the brainchild, or maybe not the brainchild, but it's very much influenced by the guy who was promoting the original anti-pattern, the Rational Unified Process. But he's really good at picking stuff. Everything from SAFe is good, but it doesn't give you a solution. So it's a good idea to have release trains if you develop software and if you have a certain kind of environment. Yeah, good idea. It's also a good idea to have portfolio Kanban. I'm an AKT myself, so no, not an AKT, an AKC, accredited Kanban consultant. Used to do that back in the day. And portfolio Kanban is one of the things how you really get the workload in huge companies under control. So it's a good idea to do Kanban on the portfolio level. But maybe it's a smarter idea not to take it from SAFe, but to look into the flight levels model from Klaus Leopold, because he might have more appropriate solutions for that. So there are good things. But the problem is this whole, we have this company who's in this differentiation phase where they have every box, and then you take the big, I don't know how big the poster is, how many items it has these days, but it's really big. And then you say, okay, this is the solution. Every little thing might be very, very nice, but the way it's implemented most of the time isn't.
So that's always a very individual way for the organization to deal with that.
And especially with the whole fixed role thing in SAFe, I have yet to see a company where it's really helpful.
I think such a poster or a product which we can put on in our organization, it sounds like a very easy and fast solution. I pay some money for that and then I have the solution, but it doesn't work this way. And I think we see now the results of that.
Exactly.
Great, Michael. Thank you very much for being here at the podcast and for sharing your knowledge in this part. I really appreciate that. And wish you all the best for your talk here at the OP. And a lovely rest of the conference here. And I hope we can make another episode in the future soon.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. And enjoy.
Bye.
Bye.